Can everyone see the flag? Is that showing for everyone?
Yes, I see it.
Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. Just a couple of minutes and we'll get started at 7 o'clock. Just bear with us. We are recording now, so if you could stay muted, just helps us with the technology side of things. So stay muted until it's your turn to speak. That would be great. Thank you.
Absolutely, yeah. Just want to make sure you're able to view it there. Sure thing.
I believe it is 7 o'clock.
Ready when you are, Chair.
Evening. Today is September 22nd, opening the meeting of the special meeting of the Citrus Heights Planning Commission. Commissioner Van Duker, would you please lead us in the pledge?
Be happy to. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much. Stacy, would you call the roll, please?
Sure, Tom, this is a regular planning commission meeting. This isn't a special meeting. Just wanted to clarify that. Commissioner Engel.
Here.
Commissioner McNavowski.
Here.
Commissioner Nishimura, Commissioner Nishimura, I see you on here. I couldn't hear your,
My space bar doesn't work.
oh,
I'm
perfect.
here.
Thank you. Commissioner Turner Mike,
Here.
Commissioner Van Duker,
Here.
Vice Chair Flowers is absent this evening. Chair Sheeler,
Here.
thank you.
Next item, please.
Consent calendar, approval of minutes for September 1st, 2021.
We have reviewed the minutes. Any comments to those minutes? Seeing none, would you call the roll, please?
Vice Chair Flowers is absent. Did we get a motion in a second?
I will make a motion, Nishimura.
Okay,
And I'll second Engel.
thank you. Vice Chair Flowers is absent. Commissioner Engel,
Yes.
Commissioner Nishimura,
Aye.
Commissioner Turner Mike,
Aye.
Commissioner Magnavowski,
Aye.
Commissioner Van Duker,
Aye.
Chair Sheeler,
Aye.
minutes passed, approved.
Next item, please.
Public comment. Under Government Code Section 54954.3, members of the audience may address the commission on any agenda item within the jurisdiction of the commission or on any agenda item. Those wishing to speak on non-agenda items will be called upon at the beginning of the meeting. Those wishing to speak for or against an agenda item will be called upon after the presentation by the City Planning Department and the applicant for that agenda item. And I have a raised hand. Can I allow them to speak now or do we wait?
I would confirm with them that they're commenting on something in general, not the next agenda items. So you can unmute them for a second and confirm that.
You're unmuted. What can we help you with this evening?
I'm speaking on an agenda item.
Okay, if you could put your hand down until that agenda item comes up, we'll call on you at the appropriate time. Thank you. And we do not have any other written comments, Chair.
Thank you. Next item, Stacy.
Public hearing, American River Collegiate Academy, 7951 Antelope Road. The project includes the development and operation of a kindergarten through 6th grade charter school. The project includes a development of 2 primary structures, including 25,000 square foot 2-story classroom building, supporting a total of 22 classrooms and related administrative spaces, as well as a 5,500 square foot multi-purpose building. In addition, the project will include associated recreational landscaping circulation improvements as identified in the project plans. Project planner, Casey Kempinar.
Chair Sheeler, I have to recuse myself from deciding on this because my employer does business with the applicant. So I will take my leave.
Thank you, Commissioner Van Duker.
Thank you, Andrew. And thanks, Stacy. Thank you, Planning Commission. We're here tonight to go over the American River Collegiate Academy project. Can everyone see my screen okay?
We're good.
Okay. So tonight we're asking the commission to consider approval of a use permit, design review permit, and tree permit, as well as approval of the infill exemption for the California Environmental Quality Act. And this is for the property at 7951 Antelope Road. As you can see on the site, can you guys see my mouse move too? Okay. The site is highlighted here in orange. It's on the north side of Antelope Road and Old Auburn Road, east of Wonder Street. Currently, the site is home to the Antelope Road Christian Fellowship, which will remain as is here on the site. It borders a single-family residential neighborhood on the east and the north. and is generally somewhat flat. It's a little bit elevated at parts of the site above Antelope Road. The project does have a number of trees, as you can see on the site. And we'll talk about trees in a fair amount of detail later, but the applicant's taken great care to save the biggest, brightest trees, and that's from day one. In meeting with them, that was one of their main objectives, is to make sure that the trees that are the best are preserved as an amenity for the site. The project overview. So this will be a new charter school that would allow for up to 558 students. It would serve kindergarten through 6th grade. The applicant would target Citrus Heights residents. It's part of the Rockland Academy family of schools. They have 4 schools in the region currently. And the project would consist of 2 new buildings, 25,000 square foot, 2-story classroom and admin building, and a 5,500 square foot multi-purpose building that has a gym and kitchen and so forth. Project also includes roadway improvements, Antelope and Wonder, new intersection construction, frontage improvements along Antelope Road and Old Auburn Road, traffic calming on both Wonder Street and Hanson. And also includes a variety of site improvements, including a circuitous circulation drop-off loop, a parking area, playground, and covered outdoor meeting area. As you can see here from the building elevations, the top building is the classroom and administration building. You can see it's 2 stories with classrooms on both floors, accessible by stairs at either end. Site also will have a elevator to serve the upper floors. The multi-purpose room is shown below. As you can see, it's a taller building to facilitate the gymnasium kind of portion of things. It has a kitchen and then an outdoor area, seating area as well. The project is proposed to ramp up enrollment over time. Currently, they have existing campus, temporary campus in Orangevale. And so that will transition once the school's open. The school will slowly ramp up, as you can see here, from kindergarten and slowly adding additional students in the higher grades, culminating with a total of, as I said, 558 students on the site. And it would include around 30 to 36 employees of teaching or principals or admin. So a little bit about the site operating schedule before we dive into this, the site layout. As I mentioned, the church is proposed to remain on the site. The church operations aren't really changing any. The school construction will demolish the existing building that the church uses for storage and office space. Its existing home, looks like a home. So that will be demoed as part of the project, but otherwise the church will remain pretty much exactly as it is. Similar service offerings, and as you can see here, the schedules they are staggered, so the church won't really be operating at the time the school is operating. So generally the school will start at 8 a.m. and we'll spend a fair amount of time talking about the staggering of the schedule. John Gard from Fair and Pierce is going to speak after me and walk through pretty in depth the thought process and the nuance of staggering times and how traffic circulation works. The project also includes before and after care. So that is a component of a service for the kids that will go there, as well as plays into the traffic circulation for the site. This is the site plan. As you can see, Antelope Road's on the bottom of the screen here, which is kind of the west side west of the site. As you can see, the existing church is shown here. So access to the site will entirely be via Wonder Street. The drive aisle will be pretty much existing as it is now, and then added on where it reaches the school property. Traffic will move counterclockwise throughout the site, creating a pretty significant stacking area for pickup and drop off. Drop off will occur in the parking lot, and once parents drop off students, they will again leave the site via Wonder Street. The project includes the construction of a pedestrian and bicycle connection to Antelope Road to provide safe and efficient access for those students that walk and bike. The project, as I mentioned, also includes frontage improvements along Antelope Road and Old Auburn, including west of the site, providing a seamless connection to Sunrise Boulevard, where we have access to transit and other amenities. For those of you who've been out to the site, you've probably seen there's a number of trees planted along Antelope Road, and those trees appear to be intentionally planted because of their spacing and nature. We worked really closely with the applicant to try to preserve as many of those as possible. It was a bit of a balancing act on the need for installing sidewalk and the preservation of trees. So a number of those trees will be removed, whereas a number of those will also remain after the construction is done. The site does provide about 59 spaces on site, but they've also have an agreement with the church to provide additional parking spaces off-site, and they're conditioned to record a shared parking agreement as part of the entitlements. Oh, but real quick before I bring John Gard up, the school site took great care into the placement of the buildings and where the noise generating uses would be. As you can see, the blue symbols here represent the speakers, and those are the kind of bells that go off to tell kids it's time for class, as well as make announcements and so forth. So those are on the Antelope side of the building, which keeps the noise going away from going to the residential areas around it, as well as the play areas where kids may yell and scream and have fun out there. Those are also shielded by the buildings. So the applicant took great care to ensure that. And as you saw in your packet, there was a noise analysis confirming that the noise affiliated with the various uses is consistent with the city's noise standards. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to John Gard, who will walk through, as I mentioned, there was a lot of nuance and thought that went into the traffic. So it's a fairly robust presentation that John will do. And hopefully John's here. There you are, John. We will walk you through the thought process because we wanted to really make sure that the school was not negatively impacting the circulation system surrounding the site. And a lot of thought went into the timing and requirements for installation and ongoing maintenance to make sure that the city is protected as part of the development as the enrollment increases. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to John Gard, who's our traffic engineer from Fair and Piers.
Great. Thank you, Casey. Again, I'm John Gard with Fair and Piers. I'm a principal in the Roseville office of the company, professional traffic engineer for over 20 years. And it's a pleasure to be here this evening, chair and members of the Planning Commission. Casey, would it be okay if I actually shared my screen? Because I'm going to be toggling between the presentation and then some videos. Yeah, thank you. Okay, so I'm going to share my screen. It's the same presentation, but it allows me to basically just a second here. Okay. Everybody see the overview of transportation, correct? Perfect. Okay, thank you. Apologies for that minor little delay there. So again, John Gard with Fair and Piers, and as Casey mentioned this evening, I'll be presenting the results of a fairly detailed technical transportation impact analysis we performed for this project. This work was done under contract to the city, and we took our lead from city staff in terms of how the analysis was being performed and the conclusions and recommendations that you'll see here today. What you see on this slide is a whole series of different technical areas in which the study focused. We looked at intersection operations during the school's morning and afternoon peak hours. We'll get into some videos showing how operations look, the presence and usage of bicycle pedestrian facilities, neighborhood traffic intrusion associated with the school using Wonder Street or Hanson Avenue and other streets. Vehicle queuing at schools is always important. So looking at student drop-off and pickup is important and critical to overall operations, safety, on-site circulation and parking within the school itself, and then emergency vehicle response. So what this slide shows here, this is basically, you can see my arrow. This is Antelope Road. The school is right in this area. Antelope Road has a posted speed limit of 35 miles an hour, and it does have a horizontal curve. What we've collected here is basically study intersections of Sunrise and Antelope and Old Auburn and Antelope and Hanson and Sunrise and Hanson and Wonder, as well as obviously Antelope and Wonder Street and the project driveway. As we do these types of studies, it's important that we examine conditions typically for a kind of a pre-COVID condition where traffic is back to kind of pre-COVID levels or normal. So fortunately, we had a data at the vast majority of these locations that we were able to use to develop some basically pre-COVID, which would be like, early 2020 or fall 2019 data. We did collect some additional counts, on stretches of Wonder Street and Hanson Avenue. This represents 1,300 ADT, which is average daily trips. So 1,300 cars per day drive up and down this stretch of road right now. As you can see from these pictures, a little small right here, but Wonder Street has widths that vary from 26 to 34 feet wide. Don't have sidewalks on the street with the exception of right along the church property. Hanson Avenue is even a little more narrow, 21 to 24 feet wide. Again, no sidewalks there, and 1,100 ADT on those roads. So a little bit of the background on the roadway system. What I want to do now is, if I can, is just pivot to. So one of the things we do is we run micro simulation models, and I'm not sure if this commission has seen a model like this yet. So I'll just pause it real quick. And what these models do is we take the traffic volumes, the lane configurations, the signal timings, the number of pedestrians, all of those various inputs, and we put them into these models to run them. And it allows us to confirm that what the model's predicting in terms of queues and delays and things like that is matching what we see in the field. And so this is existing AM peak hour, technically almost a year and a half ago now, so a pre-COVID condition. So kind of the morning commute, we see traffic pretty busy on Sunrise. We see the queues that are common on Old Auburn Road. This is AM peak hour. The PM peak hour, we'd see the much heavier left turn or right turn from Old Auburn onto Antelope. Not a lot of traffic on some of these neighborhood streets in this area, just because they're much lower volume roads when compared to these other roads. So this is sort of the background condition upon which we then look at the project's effects on top of. Let me just pivot back to to basically, so we have existing conditions. We have level service results. We'll share. Casey mentioned that this project is, it does fall within a Sequa exemption. So you may have heard me talk previously about vehicle miles traveled. That's not the focus necessarily of this study. This study is more focused on operations. Level service is part of the equation. We'll get into this a little bit more later, primarily to determine what physical improvements may be necessary to support the proper operation of the project. So we'll show a little bit more of that. This is moving quickly. Okay, there we go. So one of the things that we know with charter schools is they can be somewhat difficult to predict their travel behavior. They're very specific to the type of user group, the geographic location, and whatnot. Fortunately, this proposed project would operate very similar to Rockland Academy Gateway. And the image you see on the screen is that facility. It's in Rockland, just east of Highway 65. As you see here, west of Lone Tree, and it's the building it's a multi-story building in red. And what we did is we actually counted during April 2021, we counted trip generation of that building, and we observed queues associated with the school's morning drop-off and afternoon pickup. And then what we also did is through the city, we were able to coordinate to understand, okay, what were the in-person levels of student attendance at that time at that campus? Because again, a lot of virtual instruction was going on in spring of 2021. But that data was really helpful because, as you'll see later, it helped us understand better the expectations of vehicle queuing and trips being generated and pickup drop-off operations for the proposed site. So with that, I will kind of jump to the next slide. This one is very technical, a lot of information on this slide. When we do these types of studies, what we're trying to do is trying to estimate as accurately as possible what is the peak hour travel this project will be generating the most traffic at, and what would conditions be like during that peak hour travel. And we know that the school, and again, when we're doing this, we're looking at a project build out condition. So it's all the grades are fully occupied, all 558 students. And so Casey mentioned the staggered start times. What we've done here is, we're looking at full build out, and as we'll talk about later, a staggered start time is necessary. So 8 a.m. and an 8:20 staggered start. So the morning peak hour is based on that about 7:45 to 8:45 a.m. And during that peak hour, the volume of traffic, morning peak hour total, is about 730 vehicles generated by the school, entering and exiting combined, as you can see in this area here. During the afternoon peak hour, the trip generation of the school is about 580 vehicles, a little bit less in the afternoon peak hour, simply because the kindergartners grade is let out early, if I'm not mistaken. And then also there are after school programs that are in play as well. So same thing there. The other thing I wanted to point out here is that we did consider also the likelihood that students will walk or bike to school. And so to do that, what we did is we looked at the distribution and number of elementary school age students within a walking or biking, shed of the school. And based on that, we estimated from a conservative perspective in terms of traffic trips, about 4% walk or bike. So we do need to consider that we're going to have students walking and biking, and we need to take care of those modes of travel. And we'll see that later. As far as the distribution of trips, once we know how many are generated, we now have to figure out where they come from and where they go to. And again, that's based on the location of primarily of the elementary school age students. Again, primarily focusing on a 3-mile radius of the project site, which is, because the project's focused on Citrus Heights and San Juan Unified School District, kind of that sort of geographic area. Also potentially where some staff's located, things like that. But one thing that was very clear was that, if you look at the school's location relative to major arterial routes, Sunrise, Old Auburn, Antelope Road, the majority of trips will pass through Antelope Road and Wonder Street, almost 79, 80%, in fact. So we know that intersection is going to get a lot of use. And when we did early analysis of it, it was not working well at all. And that's what led us to the need to consider improvements to the intersection. But before I get into that, let me kind of just, again, dialing back here a little bit, looking at the level of overall traffic added to some of the neighborhood streets. And what we show here is the top box is the existing level of traffic on the road. So this is Wonder Street north of Antelope, 1,300 cars per day. With the project, this short stretch between the church driveway and Antelope Road would go up to 3,300, so about 2,000 trips. Again, the project's total daily trip generation is about 2,500 trips. So again, almost 80% of the trips are right here. But there is traffic added to Wonder Street up here, as well as Hanson, because if you are coming from the north, you're likely as a parent, sibling, driver, whatever, to drop, to take Hanson to Wonder to enter versus to take this route. Some may take this route as well, but there is likely to be some neighborhood traffic. The absolute increase here, 550 vehicles on Wonder Street, it will be noticeable, but it doesn't exceed the capacity of the road by any means. And there are recommendations presented later to calm that traffic, and I'll get into those in a little bit. So that's the neighborhood side of things. Let's talk a little bit about the intersection itself. This is Antelope Road and Wonder Street. And what's present today is it's a 4-lane road separated with a 2-way left turn lane. So if you are turning left, if a motorist is turning left from Antelope Road onto Wonder Street, they need to wait to find a gap in traffic. With the traffic signal, this will become a protected left turn lane. So they'll have their own arrow. So it makes this move much easier to make. There's some curvature here, so it certainly helps. The other thing here is that we would add a crosswalk on the east leg. We would add a crosswalk on the north leg. We'll talk about this sidewalk addition here in a little bit later. One thing to be aware of, though, is that this intersection is only about 650 feet east of the intersection of Sunrise and Antelope. So that's a little closer than we might want, but this intersection is built in where it is today. So one of the things we wanted to look at is, will Q's vehicles spill back from Sunrise and Antelope into this intersection? So I'll show that sim traffic analysis in a minute to demonstrate what's happening. We did find that this signal was necessary at the start of the 2023-2024 school year. The way we did that is we did basically iterative tests of at what point does congestion and delays on the Wonder Street approach become very problematic. One other thing to point out is that these two driveways on the south side of Antelope Road currently allow all turning movements. And with the raised median being provided here and the signal equipment present, they will be converted to right in, right out only. But what is being provided here is through some restriping, it's the ability for motors to make a U-turn here. So somebody could still make a U-turn after leaving the shopping center to make that move. With that, I'm going to pivot to this will be existing plus project AM peak hour. And I'll just pause it here just a second. So again, just in terms of what you may be seeing on screen, I just want to clarify some things. The project driveway is not proposed to go this distance. We extend driveways this distance simply to make sure that we capture all of the delay if there's a queue that spills back or anything like that. So that this is not meant to be a true driveway location. The other thing is this is not a fourth leg to the signal. This is basically necessary so that we can have this crosswalk operational. So we now have the signal in place, and again, this is AM peak hour, and this is running at kind of 2 times speed. I've got the PM that runs actually 4 times speed, so you'll be able to see more action and things like that. And the PM's a little bit more zoomed in as well, but it's apparent that this eastbound left movement here, we're calling for the need for additional storage. And with this left turn volume becoming as large as it is, we do need to increase the storage for the eastbound left at the expense of the westbound left, which is kind of an underutilized movement. We do have some fairly considerable levels of traffic, but I will show some level service results here in a little bit. Compared to how things looked before the signal was in place, this is actually a much better set of results. We don't have lines of cars that just sit there cycle after cycle, not being able to get through the intersection like you might see on a busy Friday afternoon, like on I-80 or something like that. So let me just turn to the PM peak hour real quick. Okay, so the PM peak hour, like I said, it's moving at a higher rate of speed, so you can kind of see more action over the short amount of time we have this playing. And as you can see, this is 2:45 to 3:45 p.m. Traffic levels have grown on Sunrise. We've got a lot of activity into and out of the school. These vehicles are actually doing this, more than that, because there's only 3 legs to this signal. It operates pretty efficiently. And there's just 3 phases. The lefts go, the throughs go, and then this approach goes. And so you can see that through having the signal, things are flowing pretty well. This congestion on Sunrise this was something that was a pre-COVID thing that existed already. And so we are replicating that as well. So it just kind of gives a sense of what is going on with that particular scenario. And so let me then jump forward to as far as the level service results. And again, just level service, quick definition. A is total free flow. Level service F is completely oversaturated, stop and go conditions. The city does have level service policies in its general plan. General policy is level service E at locations. The city does allow for an exception to a level service E standard on certain roadways that do have a fair amount of through traffic on them that the city cannot control the level of traffic on those roads. An example of those is Sunrise Boulevard through the entire city, as well as parts of Old Auburn Road and Antelope Road as well. But nonetheless, as you can see from this table, we don't have any level service F conditions with the project. If we just focus on the morning peak hour for a second, D, C, A, B at our 4 intersections through here, we maintain D at Sunrise and Antelope. Just a real quick discussion of this. We tested what happens at Antelope and Wonder Street with a signal without a staggered time and then with a staggered time. And the staggered time improves conditions from D to C. That's not the real reason the stagger is necessary. The next set of slides having to do with vehicle queuing is the real reason. But staggering the morning to have an 8 o'clock start and an 8:20 start not only helps queuing in the campus, but it also helps adjacent street intersection operations. The Always Stop at Hanson and Wonder maintains level service A operations. Old Auburn and Antelope level service B. Things do get busier at Sunrise and Antelope. Again, this is one of the exempt intersections in the city, but it's maintaining the city's policy of level service C. So on to something completely different. These are some charts that I'm going to walk everybody through these. These are somewhat complex. These charts show vehicle queuing during the morning peak hour for 2 different scenarios. And again, what's important here is that these queuing observations were derived directly from data we observed at Rockland Academy Gateway. And so at Rockland Academy Gateway, we watched how many vehicles could be dropped off per minute. And it amounted to 7 vehicles per minute being dropped off. They have a very efficient system there. It's well staffed, it's well run. They do a very good job at it. So 7 vehicles a minute means 140 drop-offs in 20 minutes. So the challenge we have, though, is that the drop-off for the full build out of the campus is 320 vehicles. So if we can do 140 vehicles in 20 minutes, we have 320 vehicles desiring to be dropped off. Doesn't take a rocket scientist to know that, they're not going to be able to do that in a 20 or 30 minute span. And that's what's shown here. But I want to focus first on the staggered 8 a.m., 8 a.m. and 8:20 a.m. instruction times. So basically what is allowed to happen here is that, we've got our first peak at, start time at 8 a.m. So, you can drop off your student at any time, right? There's no limitation to how early. So students do get dropped off, kind of a gradual drop somebody off 20 minutes before school, 15 minutes, and then it really starts to peak based on what we observed at Rockland Academy Gateway. But by 8 o'clock, school has started, and most parents don't want to drop off their students after school starts. And so that demand, the drop-off demand has really dropped, has diminished. And we have the second start at 8:20. And again, now we've got that extra window, that staggering that really helps the queue, so that our maximum queue is about 600 feet. And 600 feet, that means it's still 24 cars. So it's not as though there's going to be, a line of 10 or 15 cars. There's still going to be a pretty significant amount of queue, but it's all fully absorbed and dealt with within the campus for the AM peak hour. For the single instruction time frame, this is more of a challenge, and it's simply because everybody has to be dropped off, for school to start at 8 in the morning, and you don't want to drop students off after 8 in the morning, and you may not want to drop them off at 7:15 or even 7:30 either. So what ends up happening is we end up with this massive spike of almost 3,500 feet of queue, and that is a lot of cars. That's more than can be stored on the site. That queue spills back onto Wonder Street, onto Antelope Road as well. So we know that this staggered single start time is just not the solution for the school right now. But as much as we know that, we also know that school operators know that actually the afternoon pickup is actually a little bit more challenging, because in the morning you can just drop off at any time, right? And you can drop off a little earlier if you need to, but in the afternoon you have to wait for the student to be released. And so that's what this chart is intending to show. So basically in the afternoon peak hour, and again, the proposal is 2 staggered end times, 3 p.m. and 3:20 p.m. We have 260 vehicles that would pick up students in the drive-through lane. And again, Rockland Academy Gateway, they're able to basically serve 6 vehicles per minute. It's a really, really efficient system. And I've watched it personally. 5 or 6 vehicles come up simultaneously and very well organized. A lot of students are put in the appropriate car. It almost, if you've ever watched like one of those NASCAR races, it almost looks like a very slow speed, like if you're in the pit row kind of thing. You get your tire or whatever, you get your oil and gas, and then you've got an adjacent lane to move out of, and they just keep flowing it through like that. So it is a very efficient system. We have patterned based on the direction from the project description, this school and its drop off and pickup activity to be comparable, if not to be comparable to the Rockland Academy Gateway. So again, 6 vehicles per minute is necessary. And so what does occur here is basically our first pickup is that, we can start picking up students at 3 p.m. So this line of cars, the queue gradually builds and builds and builds. And then at 3 o'clock, it drops. And it would drop like a rock if we didn't have the second staggered pickup time. And that second staggered pickup time is right here. So basically this line's flat because we have vehicles leaving the queue after picking up students, and we have vehicles reaching the back of the queue because they're part of stagger number 2. But when we do this, and this is kind of basically some first in, first out kind of queuing theory that we do, the maximum queue is a little bit, almost 2,000 feet. And so what ends up happening is Casey showed the location of the drive-through lane, the counterclockwise lane. And what we've recommended is a parking lot traffic handling plan that provides more on-site stacking of cars. And what this plan shows is 2 lanes inbound. These are cones that divide the lanes of traffic. So this actually provides more storage so that the total storage provided within the school proper and within this parking lot is 1,925 feet. So the max queue is a little short than 2,000. So our projection, again, this is subject to this school performing in the same manner as Rockland Academy Gateway. And that's why this monitoring is going to come into play, which we'll talk about as well a little bit. But that this queue is going to be almost entirely covered or carried, accommodated by on the school as well as within the church parking lot. Okay, so let's move on a little bit to some other topics. So review of pedestrian facilities is always important. We do have students that will walk and bike to school, probably some staff hopefully as well. And we do know the project, school students may walk along this frontage of Antelope Road, so the sidewalk necessary here. We've already talked about crosswalks at Wonder. This will be the only crosswalk and protected signalized crosswalk at that between these two intersections, which are a pretty good distance apart. We showed it briefly in that signal design element, but this stretch of Antelope Road does not have a sidewalk, and it's about 285 feet long. We think students are going to use it, and without a sidewalk, they are going to walk the wrong direction, the bike lane, which is not desirable. So the recommendation here is to add the sidewalk. It's students, if they're coming from the west on Antelope Road or coming down Sunrise, they will use this. And so the sidewalk's an important component of that. And there's some other improvements and recommendations related to in the monitoring having to do with bike and ped improvements. So as we look at on-site circulation a little bit, there are various other recommendations in the study to improve operations at the pickup drop-off area. A little too detailed for this presentation, but they relate to where there should be parked cars that are not parked during pickup drop-off to ensure that we can, have that very efficient flow that we saw at Rockland Academy Gateway. Some internal circulation improvements, associated with making sure the drive aisles are wide enough and dealing with potential conflicts between different modes of travel. Also point out that, special events will generate parking demand. Events such as sporting events or recitals or graduation ceremonies, they could generate parking demand. Most likely it'll exceed both the on-site and adjacent church parking lot capacity. It's common at, various schools. This happens during these atypical events, but advanced planning and coordination with the city is going to be required to handle those types of conditions. We also have to worry when we're thinking about these types of activities of discouraged or prohibited drop-off or pickup activity occurring despite, if we don't apply best efforts. And there are some areas where that potentially could happen if no efforts are applied. And one of these is right along the fringe on Antelope Road. There is, as Casey mentioned, a pedestrian walkway right here. So we want to make sure that students are not being dropped off right here. So recommendations to put no stopping signs on Antelope Road as an initial deterrence, and we'll talk about monitoring here in a little bit more. I know Rockland Academy Gateway has a lot of information disseminated to parents as to how to drop off and pick up students, and they also have a whole series of traffic personnel. I've seen them in action personally, and I think they're pretty effective at what they do. They're remaining on campus. They're not within the public right-of-way, assigning right-of-way or anything like that. And then very importantly, we have monitoring. And that monitoring is not just student drop-off and pick up here, but it's also Wonder Street could happen. If not deterred, we could have parents dropping off in this area. This is Charlene Way, which is a cul-de-sac that connects up to Hanson up here. This is also an area that will be monitored as well for potential drop-off. So overall recommendations before we get to monitoring. We've already talked about a lot of this. We've talked about the signal, and the timing at Antelope and Wonder, the traffic handling plan, and the no stopping signs on Antelope Road. These shopping center driveways are being right turn only. The eastbound left turn lane being lengthened from 150 to 275 feet. We've checked the westbound left turn volume is not very heavy, so reducing it to 205 feet works operationally. Talked about the sidewalk on the north side of Antelope Road. And then as far as neighborhood issues here, we're recommending traffic calming in the form of speed humps, most likely. Speed humps that deter speeds and also can potentially deter volume of traffic as well, because the travel will become slower. Along Wonder Street, those speed humps, traffic calming will be on both Wonder as well as Hanson. And then on Wonder Street, also centerline striping. Centerline striping acts to make a roadway in the lane feel more narrow, again, reducing volume and speed of traffic potentially. And as for monitoring, so the initial monitoring would be in the year 2022-2023 school year, first year of opening. Data collection includes a variety of traffic volumes and queuing and bicycle pedestrian activity, undesired drop-offs, if that's occurring. A second set of monitoring would occur 2 to 3 years later, depending on what we see initially. And then once full enrollment is reached or is very close, school's very close to being at capacity, monitoring of that condition would occur as well. And the study includes a whole series of performance standards that are evaluated as part of the monitoring, and those relate to the inbound student drop off and pickup activities, not queuing back to Wonder Street, and project added traffic not exceeding projections in the traffic study on parts of Wonder and Hanson Avenue north of the site, and vehicle queues, and looking at pedestrian bicycle activity, all that information. And so if we find that some of the monitoring is not, performance standards are not being met, then it's the responsibility of the applicant operator of the school to make changes in operations to meet those goals. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Casey, who will continue the presentation, and I'll be here for questions.
Can you guys see my screen again? Yes, okay. Let me get caught up here. And just for those in the audience that have their hands raised, just know that the time for the Planning Commission to call on you to speak about the project will happen in a few moments. So if you have your hand raised, you can keep it up if you'd like, but you will not be called on until the appropriate time. Okay, so John talked, I'm not going to talk too much about this slide. John talked a lot about it, but hopefully it was clear by John's really robust presentation that there was a lot of forethought into making sure that this operation does not impact the circulation of the city. So we have, as John mentioned, the monitoring is required, and as the buildup of the school progresses, there's a handful of monitoring opportunities to make sure that they're operating as anticipated. And then, of course, as John mentioned, intersection improvements and staggered start times all are triggered based on the assumptions that are made in the traffic study, and then those can be further refined as we do monitoring as we move forward. So in terms of Sequa, we found that the project is consistent with an infill exemption. And there's a fairly long attachment in your staff report about what makes this qualify for an exemption, but I'll kind of hit the highlights. To be an infill exemption, has to be under 5 acres. It is surrounded by urban uses, which it is, consistent with the zoning and general plan, which it is. Then you have to also confirm there's no significant impacts. And John just did a good job of walking through the transportation impact study that really looked at the operational restrictions and improvements required to be consistent with our standards that we have in our general plan. As I mentioned earlier, there was an acoustical analysis done that demonstrated that the project meets the city's noise standards. The project applicant has proposed a sound wall along the eastern and northern side of the site, and then also has to comply with the city's construction hours of operation to minimize noise impacts. From air quality, the project is below the threshold for the Sacramento Air Quality Management District. And then in terms of demolition, they're required to obtain a demolition permit, which looks at the air quality associated with the existing building there that will be removed. And then in terms of water quality, there is a number of biofiltration BMPs and ultimately the project would connect to the city storm drain system. So there, as you can see here by this summary here, that it does comply with all those standards that are outlined by the California Environmental Quality Act. Project is also consistent with the zoning code. Schools are allowed in the RD3 zone with a use permit. And then it also complies with the city's design guidelines and standards. The project helps support some of the goals and policies of the general plan associated with providing youth and family services and helping achieve academic excellence, which is shown here on the screen. So again, the entitlements are a use permit to allow the operation of the school, including before and after care and associated uses. That includes the offsite improvements as outlined by John, including the timing of each of those milestones. The design review permit authorizes the construction of the 2 buildings and the associated improvements to make that work. And then last but not least is a tree permit. As I mentioned, there's a number of trees on site. Some of them are recommended for removal because of their condition. Others are recommended for removal because of construction. The applicant, as I mentioned, when we first started talking about this project, there's a big tree right here, and right here. And they really took great care to preserve those. Those are the most notable trees, the most exceptional trees. It's like really planned around that. And so those trees will remain, as well as a handful of trees along Antelope Road, as I mentioned earlier. They also took great care with the sound wall. They jog around the existing trees that are up on the property line to help preserve those trees as well. And then during construction, they are required to have protective fencing around trees that are to remain, and then have an arborist on site for any construction that's occurring within the drip line of those protected trees. One quick clarification here on condition approval number 4, just clarifying the technical side of things that would dictate how the signal connects to the city's traffic signal network. So in the red here is a modified portion of that condition that allows, either a fiber or a wireless connection to help ensure all the signals are talking to each other appropriately. This was inadvertently left off and just meant to clarify the conceptual and final design requirements. So with that, I'm happy to turn over to the commission for any questions. The applicant does have a number of folks here that's also ready to talk when you're ready. So I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
Very good, Casey. Commissioners, do you have any questions?
I have a few.
Commissioner Nishimura?
To the school, what time do you plan on opening the campus where you have supervision? I mean, can parents bring their kids at 7:15? Will there be supervision there? Or is there a limited time, maybe 15 minutes before school starts?
Commissioner Nishimura, we'll have the applicant come up in a moment and can address that question as well as any other questions. Is there any questions of staff at the moment?
Maybe for Leslie, none of this is going to matter for about 3 years anyway, but will the traffic signals be adjusted just during school hours? Or can they be adjusted during the peak times and go back to normal conditions when there's no school?
Definitely, by providing that amended condition of approval and adding the connections to both the signal at Old Auburn and the signal at Sunrise, we'll be able to coordinate them all together any time of the day. And then we'll also have remote capabilities to do that from City Hall, as well as ability to monitor it in real time. But basically, all of that would be possible any time of the day, whether it's school peak, PM peak, anything happens at the church on the weekend, anything can be adjusted.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. And then maybe to John, do you have an estimated time of running through the queue at full enrollment? I mean, how long would it take a parent to get onto the campus from Wonder Street to finally exiting at Wonder Street? How long is the estimated time to run through the queue?
Well, yeah, great question, Commissioner. I think it depends on when you enter the queue. I've been at Rockland Academy Gateway watching their operations a number of times. And if you're the last one to join the queue, you might be there for 15, 20 minutes, but on average, maybe 10 minutes. I think the school's representatives may be able to provide a more accurate answer than that. But it's amazing how quickly at Rockland Academy Gateway, the queue just really just dissipates and falls off because of their service flow.
Okay, thank you. It's like I said, it's not going to really matter for about 3 years anyway. I just was curious if you had that information. Thank you.
I have a question.
Commissioner Engel?
Yeah, one street that I didn't really see referred to. I'm kind of curious if Antelope at Old Auburn, you know, I'm thinking about the people coming out of Leatherby's, trying to make a right and then get into that left lane to flip a U. So you're saying there at Wonder it would have a U-turn would be available to those people coming out of the shopping center. Is there a U-turn available out by the ballpark at Old Auburn and Antelope? So if you don't say you are trying to get out at at high traffic time, and you want to just go all the way up to Antelope and Auburn, is that a U-turn accessible? Are they allowed right there? Do we know?
Checking.
Leslie, do you know offhand?
It's not allowed.
It's not, because that would be maybe, for me, that might be something to be considered. I just think it's going to be difficult for people coming out of that gym at high traffic hour when traffic's coming up Antelope from Sunrise, trying to cross that traffic to be able to make a U-turn and get back to Sunrise. So I don't know whether that's something that the city can look at, maybe consider.
The only thing I would maybe add to that, Commissioner, is that we counted the number of vehicles turning left out of that driveway, and it's not a substantial amount of traffic. I don't have the exact number. It's 10, 15, 20 vehicles, something like that in the peak hour.
Oh, really?
So it's not a huge volume of traffic. But the thing I think that's more important is that there will be gaps in traffic on eastbound Antelope caused by the signal at Sunrise.
Okay.
And those gaps are going to provide, time for motorists leaving that shopping center to get across the 2 lanes to get into the turn lane. And the turn lane itself is going to be basically empty 22 hours a day. It's for, when the school peaks are really going, yeah, it'll be full, but for most of the time, it will not be very well occupied. There's not a lot of left turn traffic today.
Okay, thank you. That answers that. Another question I did have, we referred to Rockland a lot, and just having looked at the site, it looks like they have, I could be mistaken, but it looks like they have a lot of parking for one thing all around. It's kind of it's a totally different kind of site, right? It's not residential, surrounded by residential, it's surrounded by business. And it seems as though there are a lot of parking spaces around it. And I'm just wondering, it's great that they are smoothly coming in and out of there, but I would also, by looking at it, think that maybe they've got more cars available to do their route. Am I mistaken in looking at that?
So, yeah, I mean,
are we comparing apples to apples? I guess that's my question. Like how many spots, how many students, and it just looks like a very different site to me.
Yeah, so great questions. And again, the traffic study gets into a high level of detail here, but this campus, Rockland Academy Gateway is capable of, and I'll let the school representatives talk to this, but when we did the observations, I think half the students were virtual. And so those that were in person amounted to somewhere in the 500 student range. And so it was like a pretty decent comp, so to speak, to the proposed school here. But again, when we do it on the basis of like number of trips generated per student and queue per student, that allows us to be a greater equivalency. And the fact that it's the same group operating it gives us even a little more confidence. There is, and I'll let the school representatives talk about parking. There is some parking, but the area east of the building, that's all walled off. That's basically for a play yard area and things like that. So the only parking that I've noticed is to the west of the school, to the south of the school a little bit. But I'll let the school representative talk more about that.
Okay.
And the only thing I would add is, we compared the parking requirement of the city to what they're proposed based on number of students, and in conjunction with their on-site parking and the shared parking agreement with the church, they have adequate parking that meets the zoning code.
Okay. Yeah, I read that. That's good. Thank you.
A few questions. This is Commissioner Mcnofsky. So first a comment. I always drive by the lot and always think about like new development there. So for example, some apartment complex or possibly, residential, like a whole bunch of homes. And I always thought about it would really be it would be worse for the city if there would be a pullout or a drive-in into that just parcel itself. So my comment is, I'm glad to have the neighborhood, like the neighboring parcel, the existing church, for them to actually have a roadway. So then there would be less outlets in our arterial road, which is Antelope. So thanks for the applicant for actually doing that and pushing the traffic through the church. But I do agree with Commissioner Engel about the U-turn. It seems too short of a drive for the U-turn on that street that we talked about from the shopping area. And pretty sure, I don't know exactly, but I'm pretty sure Family Fitness is close. So if you guys did the survey now, a lot of traffic is not there. So I was just wondering, is it possible to kind of what Commissioner Engel said, is to allow a U-turn at Antelope and Auburn, or extend the ability to, if you did miss that, right turn, and then the U-turn like street light can, or is it possible to somehow, make a U-turn if you did miss it?
Sure, I'll just talk really quickly. That parking lot also has driveways on Sunrise. So if you're going northbound on Sunrise, there is the option to pull out right into that arterial and continue north. If you're going either direction on Old Auburn or even south on Sunrise, it actually is pretty convenient to turn right out of the driveways on Antelope to the intersection at Old Auburn and Antelope, and then go to Sunrise that way. And I've noticed, and I go out there at lunch to observe traffic as we've been preparing this project, and I see a lot of people already doing that, just because the left turn out of the existing driveways on the south side of Antelope is quite difficult to make that left turn currently. So that is a travel pattern that regularly occurs now. And then the last thing that I'll just mention is we do have our Old Auburn Road Complete Streets plan that was adopted recently, and we have recently received grant funds to start design and right-of-way acquisition for improvements to Old Auburn, including the intersection of Old Auburn and Antelope. And so there will be some upgrades to that traffic signal here in the next few years. And as part of that, we'll be looking at getting rid of the pork chop island, improving the crossing and pedestrian facilities there, and also looking at the need for U-turn movements at that time.
Got it. Thank you for the explanation. So there were some nearby residents that via the public comment email, they're concerned about waiting and picking up students and causing more traffic on the residential streets. So it looks like, according to the transit map of the school and the pickup area, there's a lot of space to wait for drop off or pickup. So I just want to confirm, is there enough space where there will not be, additional parking caused within the residential area? Because it looks like there's enough space where people can wait for pickup and drop off, but is that what is that the case?
So there's a fair amount of, if I understand your question right, there's a fair amount of pickup and drop off space queuing through the site. The project's also conditioned for the monitoring to make sure that people are following the rules, and the school has an operations plan to help ensure that, and they could probably speak to that a little bit. But based on the traffic analysis, there's plenty of queuing space for folks to get into the site and back out without causing issues, if that answered your question.
Yes, but to add on, or another question on the monitoring part. So if the monitoring numbers do not meet, let's say, the standards, what happens then?
The monitoring includes a provision that a professional traffic engineer such as John Gar would go out there and take a look and do observations and counts and see what's going on out there. And then the school is conditioned to make adjustments as necessary if the performance measures aren't being met. And that may be something such as operational changes, such as hours of operation, or it could be a physical barrier, or it could be, no parking signs. There's a fair amount of flexibility in there based on observed conditions out there.
Got it. Thank you very much. That's it.
Any other commissioner questions? I guess this might be a question for Casey or John, I'm not sure which. Is there on-street parking allowed on Wonder Street now?
You want to go, Casey, or do you want me to?
Go ahead, John.
Yes, there is. There's nothing signed that prohibits somebody from parking on street. So if somebody was so inclined to park on street, they could.
Well, I know that part of this overall process of trying to keep it all on the site, they're going to be working with the parents to basically tell them not to do that. But you talked also about special events and whatever else, so that there's no way that a special event is going to be able to hold all the cars. So presumably they would be ending up potentially parking on Wonder Street, for those kind of events.
I think Casey, I think that the school representatives will probably want to provide some input on that because, just the way they run Rockland Academy Gateway, for instance, there certainly seems as though there's a lot of direct guidance and physical presence on that campus to ensure that people are doing the right thing in terms of dropping off correctly. It's for me to be out there, it's pretty amazing. I've had 3 kids go through public school, and you go through, people are doing whatever they feel like doing in terms of pickup and drop off. And it seems a little bit more orderly with this, at least at Rockland Academy Gateway. So hopefully this follows same suit.
And I would add, the school and church, as part of their parking agreement, have a provision that they coordinate on any big events such as graduation to make sure that those events are not occurring at the same time. And then also bigger events, they coordinate with the city's traffic engineer to make sure signals are tied into those events as well.
Great, thank you. I guess if there's no other questions, I will open the public hearing. Is that correct, Casey?
Yes, I would invite the applicant up to speak before we get to the raised hands.
Very good. Applicants, would you please speak on your project?
David Temblador is starting off for them, I believe.
Yeah, excellent. Good evening, commissioners and Chair Sheeler. I appreciate the opportunity to present to you tonight. My name is David Temblador. I am a land use attorney with Harrison, Temblador, Hungerford, and Johnson. And tonight I am joined by several individuals on the project team. Not all of them will speak tonight, but they are certainly available to answer questions that the commission may have, or of course, any questions that the public may have as we move through this hearing. So by way of introductions, I did want to introduce Charity May and Tom Belinsky, who are with Turner Impact Capital. They are the project developers. So they'll be the ones that are actually constructing the project and bringing it up out of the ground if we're lucky enough to get an approval this evening. And then from Rockland Academy, I'm joined by Jelaine Antune. And then our project architect, Marty Hawcroft, is also available for tonight to answer any questions you might have regarding the building architecture, some of the site planning, and the rest. But before I start, obviously you had an extremely comprehensive presentation by your staff, by Mr. Gard. No surprises. We're very proud of this project as a team, but I will candidly say it's a better project because of Mr. Kempenar's efforts and Mr. Gard's efforts, as well as the balance of the city staff. School projects are very valuable, very needed projects, but they are very challenging projects. And so we really appreciate staff's effort to help us identify and work through all of the important issues that we know need to be addressed, that we know the questions that you would have. So we have a good project to present to you this evening. So with that, I would like to take a moment before I kind of get into the nuts and bolts of the application itself and hit a couple highlights. I would like to ask Jelaine to kind of take a moment and talk a little bit about Rockland Academy and really their vision for this particular school site. So Jelaine?
Thank you, David, and good evening, commissioners and Chair Sheeler. I'm Jelaine Antone. I'm the Director of Growth and Community Engagement for the Rockland Academy Family of Schools. And first, before I talk a little bit about our school, I just wanted to say that I can't begin to tell you how excited my team and I are to be here with you tonight, hopefully taking this big step for our school, American River Collegiate Academy. For our current families and our future families, the community of Citrus Heights, and most of all, the students who we are serving now and who will come through these doors in the years to come. This school has been a dream of ours for many years, and after more than 3 years of hard work, we got the school open, and to be here in front of you tonight with this campus project is really very exciting for our team. As mentioned, American River Collegiate Academy is part of the Rockland Academy family of schools. Rockland Academy has been around since 2001. This is the 5th school that we have opened, but the first school outside of the city of Rockland. We specifically chose Citrus Heights for this school because of the need and the desire that we saw and heard in the community for a high quality public school choice for families. The children and families of Citrus Heights deserve an excellent public school choice in their community, and we are committed to serving this community well. At American River Collegiate Academy, we offer the same high quality, award-winning, and proven educational program as our schools in Rockland. And this year we are serving kindergarten, 1st and 2nd grade students at our temporary location, and they're learning all about the world they live in through our core knowledge curriculum. Core knowledge is rich and engaging. It focuses on the arts, music, literature, really rich topics in American history, as well as world history, geography, and science, and has a strong character education program so that students learn about the world that they live in and how to be a good member of their local community, as well as our global community. Tricia Smith, American River's principal, recently shared a photo of 1st grade students at recess. They were learning about ancient Mesopotamia, and at recess, out of some playground cones, they had built a replica of the wall that the ancient Mesopotamians built to protect their city. And that's the kind of education that children in Citrus Heights now have access to at American River Collegiate Academy. In addition to the strong educational program, we do have a track record of strong operations and really positive community relationships. We have a very experienced team in our organization supporting this school and this project. So thank you for your time tonight. And as we move forward this evening, again, I just want you to know how committed we are to working collaborative with you, to continue collaboration with city staff, and of course, our new neighbors in this new neighborhood that we hope to move into. So thank you. And David, I will pass it back to you.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Jelaine. I really appreciate that. As I kind of start off here to talk about the project, and I'm certainly not going to try to address all of the detail that Casey and John were able to provide for you, but I did want to hit a couple highlights. But as I start off, there was a couple comments and questions about the Rockland Gateway school that they currently operate out in the city of Rockland, and it's a really important piece, I think, that hopefully help give the commission some context. Charter schools often end up in repurposed buildings. The campus you were looking at in John's slide is actually an office park. Oftentimes charters end up in office parks, they end up in commercial strip centers, they end up in various places like that, where they're repurposing or reusing existing facilities and really trying to fit the schools into those somewhat atypical environments that we might see for educational facilities. The project before you this evening is a purpose-built school. This is, as you all know, this is fundamentally a vacant site. And this is really a unique opportunity for folks like Rockland Academy, for charter schools, to be able to build a purpose-built campus. And so much of what you heard tonight and the interaction that this project team has had with city staff is about understanding and identifying how they can make sure that their purpose-built project fits within the community, addresses impacts and issues on the site to the best extent that they can, and really is done in a way that's not trying to shoehorn something in, but truly trying to fit something into the fabric of the surrounding landscape. So I wanted to start off with that because I think it's an important distinction and an important thing to understand as you understand about Rockland. And maybe one additional point I would add is having to deal with kind of atypical sites, kind of like the one you saw on the screen previously. It makes people be very creative. And it teaches them how to solve and problem solve issues. And traffic is probably the biggest one. And so I know Jelaine and her team are very proud of and confident about their ability to manage traffic issues on their sites, and particularly a site that they've been able to design from scratch and really get their hands dirty in terms of trying to make sure this is put together properly. So with that, as Casey's already mentioned, the campus does include 2 primary buildings. It's a 25,000 square foot classroom building with 22 classrooms and some administrative space, and then a 5,500 square foot gymnasium multi-purpose room that would have additional storage and some other ancillary uses. As has been mentioned, there are a total of 107 parking spaces associated with this project. 59 of those will be on site, as you can see kind of in the gray at the very kind of top center of the screen you're looking at right now. And then an additional 48 spaces on the adjacent church property by virtue of a reciprocal parking agreement between the church and the school. There's been quite a few questions about kind of special events and various kind of call it graduations or back to school night. Rockland Academy is very conscious of those items, kind of above and beyond the conditions that are already embedded into the staff materials you've reviewed already this evening. They take great pains to really look at their calendar on an annual basis, and so that they identify potential conflicts and have had active conversations and continue to have active conversations with the church to not only make sure that they're accommodating their own school needs, but also candidly the church's needs, things like Easter and Christmas, where the church will have more intensive uses. And really the intent here, both through the easement, but also more importantly through the practical and personal relationships between the church and the school, is to make sure these things operate in harmony and they benefit each other. So we're hopeful that there would not be a situation where we'd have overflow into the surrounding neighborhood. Maybe I would emphasize further that the school is very cognizant of having events that could spill over, and they oftentimes will add stagger their events, band them by grade levels, because they truly do not want to be a burden on their surrounding neighborhood. So we can certainly address more questions as it relates to that, but I did want to flag that because we had a couple questions from the commission. I do want to focus a little bit on, you've heard a lot about traffic, but I do want to maybe take a moment and just a couple highlights as it relates to site design and orientation. As Casey said, the building orientations here were very purposely driven and very purposely located to ensure that the active and really kind of the business end, I would say, of the school really functions to the west, facing towards Antelope Road. And that was done very consciously to avoid impacts to the existing residential neighborhoods to the east of the site and to the north of the site. That was very intentional. The buildings themselves, as has already been noted in your acoustic analysis, they provide sound dampening, and they really reduce the potential for off-site noise impacts to those neighborhoods. Moreover, there's a significant landscape planting along the eastern and northern boundaries to really provide additional screening and visual protections of the site to those surrounding residences. And then, as already has been mentioned, I'll talk about it a little bit more as I go on, but obviously a very conscious effort to address circulation at the critical moments of pickup and drop off. The orange area you see here, you've heard quite a few numbers here. I'm not going to give you the linear footage because that's not how I think. But what I would say is that the orange area you see on the screen accommodates about between 75 and 85 cars. So that's a pretty significant number of cars on site. And as has been already discussed, really the design here was intended to capture as much of that pickup and drop off on the project site as humanly possible. And then obviously we have some other stuff I'll address related to monitoring and the more technical aspects that John touched on as well. In terms of operations, just a couple points. There's been some discussion around kind of the hours of operation. I think Commissioner Nashimura, you had asked a question about kind of monitored or times when the school would be open, when folks would actually have people on campus to make sure the kids are okay. I can assure you that is the case. The campus will technically be open for before school and after school programs from 7 a.m. to 6 p.m. And that would obviously have staff on site. The actual school hours, though, would be from the 8 a.m. hour. And then there will actually be a staggered pickups in the afternoon related to grade level. So at full build out, the campus will have approximately 72 kindergarten students. And those students would end their day at about 1:40 p.m. The first through sixth grade students would end their day at 3 p.m. Just as the project is designed right now. I'll address in a moment a little bit of the milestones and some of the traffic monitoring that John's already touched on, because I do want to highlight a couple points there for the commission. Above and beyond that, and if there's other questions, I can certainly ask Jelaine to come up at the end of my presentation. You've heard allusions to it from John and from others. Rockland Academy prides themselves, prides themselves on their interactions with their students and their students' parents. Kind of throughout this process, they have addressed and really, really talked about their own practical experiences in communicating with their parents, in making sure that students and their parents understand what the expectations or obligations are, particularly as they relate to drop-offs and pickups, and that things like parking up the street on Wonder or other streets or Antelope Road or whatever are just not acceptable. And they've thought long and hard about that and have proven strategies with their existing campuses to prevent those types of things from happening. And if the commission has other questions, I can certainly ask Jelaine to address them a little more fully for you. In terms of just two key items, and then I'll wrap up my remarks. I did want to touch base again on the traffic management issue itself. Really, again, the guiding principle for this project has been from the outset to compartmentalize as much of the traffic concern on site as humanly possible. Having said that, we certainly recognize as a project team, and your staff does as understanding that they have to address these issues long-term if this project gets approved. They have included requirements for active monitoring by a traffic consultant like Mr. Gard or someone like him to really make sure that what Rockland Academy is saying in their project operations is what they're doing as the school comes online and they start to build out to full enrollment. So there's a couple milestones that I really just want to highlight again. They've been mentioned a couple times already, but as the project is currently conditioned, traffic monitoring is required initially as a baseline monitor at 140 students, and that would require initial traffic monitoring just to basically to ground truth that what the traffic studies are saying is actually what's happening on the campus. And then importantly, as Mr. Gard and Casey have addressed, there's two important milestones in the campus's build out. And the first is at 246 students, or roughly 44% of occupancy. At that moment in time, the conditions would require that the traffic study that's been discussed would be installed. I think Commissioner Nishimura, you had mentioned that it's a few years down the road till some of this stuff might come into play. That's really what the conditions are talking about, is at that milestone would be the requirement for the traffic signal to be installed. And then lots of conversation about staggered starts and staggered times. Based on the current traffic analysis from Mr. Gard and his technical team, that staggered start time would be triggered at roughly 468 students, or 84% of build out. Candidly, I think the school is very confident in their traffic operations. And I think they're hoping they can beat that and may not have to do staggered starts. But out of an abundance of caution and as a conservative approach, they recognize that if they can't do better than that, they're going to have to do staggered starts at that 84% build out period. Importantly, one important item I don't know that was mentioned, but I do want to flag it. Traffic monitoring is not cheap, and people don't do it for free. And so as part of the project conditions, Rockland Academy has committed to providing a deposit to the city in the amount of $25,000. And that is intended to pre-fund any of the future traffic monitoring that's been mentioned tonight or that's included in the conditions. So those monies will be on hand with the city to pay for that. So that is not a concern. Rockland recognizes, and they're willing to put their money where their mouth is. To use a colloquial phrase. Additionally, kind of the lawyer in me will note also that the conditions do require that the school and the city enter into agreements necessitating the construction of the various improvements that you've heard tonight. So there will additionally be legal obligations that the school will be entering into to confirm those items. Just a couple real other items just of moment. I do appreciate Ms. Bloomquist raising the complete streets comment. The project, that's been a part of the conversation of the project since its outset. And I'm happy to say that the project has been designed at its southern end to accommodate the city's complete streets project. So when that funding is available and that project comes online, this project will have already been designed to accommodate whatever shape and nature those improvements manifest themselves in. So I appreciate her for bringing that up quickly. Again, I've already mentioned the special events that there's been already concerted effort to address that, and that would be done in a way to avoid overflows into the community. And then the last item I did want to just touch on briefly before I conclude is tree preservation. Not as much conversation tonight about that, but it is a significant issue and one that's important, I know, to the city and the city's residents. Great efforts have been taken on this project to maintain as much of the tree canopy as humanly possible. As Casey noted, there are, however, 35 protected trees that are being removed that will require mitigation. And so the project will, of course, be meeting their mitigation obligations. The item I just did want to raise real quick is there has been a very strong preference and an effort by the project applicants and by this team to do as much of that mitigation on site. A little less than half of the mitigation inches for this project, or roughly 240 inches, will be accomplished by on-site plantings. So that's real trees going into the ground on this site. The balance of the mitigation would be handled through the city's normal tree ordinance process, which includes an in lieu fee payment for the planting of trees at off-site locations. And then maybe finally on the tree piece, Casey mentioned it already, but there are 3 very significant oak trees, blue oak trees at the entrance at, I guess, what I would call the roundabout entrance to the project. The project team, and I know the school sees that as it's really an entry monument. It's a living monument at the entrance to the project. And so we've really tried to design the project to maintain those trees because they just provide just a wonderful entrance and natural kind of canopy to the campus. And so those in particular are trees 146, 149, and 150 in your staff reports. And they range in size from about 13 inches diameter at breast height, all the way up to really kind of an amazing 38 inches at breast height, which is, if folks know trees, that's a really big tree, especially if it's an oak tree. So, and again, as Casey's mentioned, of course, the project will have an arborist on site to address any tree issues during the course of construction. So those are my points that I wanted to make this evening. You know, we're very excited for this project. It's an important project. It's a challenging project, but I think as a team, we hope that we've met the challenge and that the commission will endorse it this evening. We have, I will say that we have reviewed the conditions of approval, including the amendment that Casey mentioned at the end of his presentation, and we are fully in accord with those conditions. And so with that, I would close by saying we would obviously greatly appreciate the commission's support tonight. And our team is available to answer any further questions that you might have. So thank you.
Thank you very much. Commissioners, do you have any questions of the applicant? All right, I do. I take it I think it's been referenced in terms of the partnership. I think is the terminology that was used, but I obviously a long-term partnership, if you want to call it that, easement, whatever, with the church is essential since that's the primary route to get onto this project. Can you assure me or reassure me that exists or will exist?
Yeah, absolutely. It will exist. And indeed, there's a condition that requires that the city review that easement to confirm that it meets all of the city's needs for that long-term relationship as a legal matter, so that there's never a situation where you wouldn't have access and those reciprocal rights. So 100%, Commissioner.
Thank you. Another question. I'm most concerned, we talked about monitoring over the long term at various phases of this project with a total build out of 558 students. And should there be, my concern is, should there be problems as we approach that peak? If there is problems with traffic, even though there's been monitoring done, various additional steps that can be taken to try to ameliorate that situation. One of the comments that was included in the report was even restricting enrollment. And if I'm going to vote for this project, I need to know that this project is going to be viable in all circumstances and not be potentially impacted by having to restrict enrollment due to traffic and therefore become an unviable project. Can you address that question?
Yeah, I'll take a first cut at it, and I may ask Jelaine to address it as well as ultimately the operator. First off, I would say Chair, embarking on a project of this scope is not an inconsequential effort from a financial or a time commitment. And so my threshold comment to you would be that the school has taken great pains to understand the magnitude of their traffic impact and very, very willingly and with their eyes open acknowledge the monitoring obligations and the consequences of those monitoring obligations as they're articulated in your staff materials tonight, including the issue of a potential reduction or curtailment in the number of student enrollments. So I would start off by saying that the second comment I would say, and maybe Jelaine can speak to this more fully, the school's financial health is directly driven by the number of students that it has, which is potentially the reason for your question. But I would say that they have a profound incentive to make sure that their campus operates in the way they say their campus is going to operate, and that the future traffic analysis that's done by Mr. Gard or another traffic consultant, that they're meeting their marks, and that if things are required, be they operational or physical, necessary to address those issues, I feel confident in saying, and I'll let Jelaine speak here in a moment, but I feel confident in saying that they will meet their mark. So Jelaine, I don't know if you want to add anything to that.
Yeah, I was the founding principal of Rockland Academy Gateway, and we opened that school in that business park with 820 students on day one and grew it to about 1,200 students now. So John, I actually wish John had seen us in a normal year, not a pandemic year. I did the math during the presentation. We get 537 kids in the door in a 15-minute span. So I think we really do have those processes. We staff it. Administration is outside every morning. We're communicating with our parents and we're adjusting and changing things as needed. So I think, the possibility, the staggered start and end time does impact the school programmatically in terms of teachers able to meet together due to contracted times. So that's not our favorite solution, but we do know that if we need to look at those staggered times, that absolutely will be willing to do that and continue to work with our families and improve our processes. But like David said, I love to talk about the educational program more than I love to talk about the traffic of running a school. But we do both of those things really well. And again, our commitment at all of our schools is to be a integral part of the community and to be good neighbors to our neighbors, whether they're residents at American River Collegiate Academy or the nearby businesses. At Rockland Academy Gateway, we have great relationships with the businesses and, even have put additional staff at some of the intersections in the business park to make sure that we're allowing business traffic to flow in advance of our school traffic flowing. So we do those things to be good neighbors, and we'll continue to monitor and improve, like David mentioned.
Yeah, and Chair Schiller, just maybe one final point of clarification. Jelaine mentioned that they grew the Rockland Academy School up to 1,200. I want to be super clear for the commission. The use permit before you this evening caps the maximum build out of the school at 558 students and 36 staff persons. So we would not exceed that. So in anticipation of a potential question, I wanted to get ahead of that and just be very clear on that.
Thanks, David.
Yeah,
we had planned to open that school or grow that school to 1,200 students. So the city of Rockland considered that proposal when we went to them. So this is a K-6 school versus a TK through 8th grade school. So 558 will be the maximum number of students.
Excellent.
Thank you both for the reassurance.
Yeah, I have one question. It's probably not that important, but I noticed that the stairwells are on the exterior of the building, and I just wonder if that's something that you have experience in, because it seems as though clearly the Rockland School, the stairwells are inside. And so is that something that we're in California, there's like not a lot of high-rise schools. So I have none. And so I just wonder how that's going to be navigated as far as student safety, for example.
Sure, I'll take the first run at it, and then I'll let Jelaine hop in there. Albeit not as common in the Sacramento region, it's certainly something that we do see in school design. And Marty Hawkroth, who's the project architect, can address some of those particulars on it. But we feel very confident that that's going to be okay, and it's been designed in such a way. So maybe Marty, you want to jump in first, and I'll let Jelaine talk.
Sure, thank you, David. And good evening, Mr. Chair and Commissioners. I'm the principal of Artique Art and Architecture, and we've been doing educational architecture for more than 25 years, all within the California area. And we have done at least a dozen buildings that have this sort of exterior circulation system and an exterior stairway like this, both district schools and charter schools. And we have, found that they actually work very well for a two-story schools condition.
Jelaine, did you have anything you wanted to add to that?
Only that having opened Rockland Academy Gateway in an office building at the back of an office park, this this piece of land and the trees and the fact that the students will have grass to play on, and like all of that is it's such a beautiful place to have a school. And I'm so excited for our students. And I think operationally, as we get kids in there, we'll learn the best flow of the campus like we do at any school. But this, one of our schools is on a campus that it's 1-story buildings, but is that external, like typical California type of campus, which this feels very similar to that with just the addition of a second floor.
Okay, is the second floor, is it covered?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, it's fully covered. So it's a little hard to pick up on the screen, but the kind of the beige area you see around the white classrooms, that's actually an overhang that would cover the exterior walkways as well as the stairways. Also, it's not super easy to see on this top-down view, but in addition to the stairways, Commissioner, there's also an elevator to provide full upstairs, downstairs access, ADA access to the second story.
Thank you.
Of course.
Commissioners, any other questions? Hearing none, I guess we move on to the open comment.
Excellent. And just before I step back, certainly if the commission has any questions after hearing public comments, we continue to be available, and we'd be happy to answer any further questions that the commission might have. So again, thank you so much for taking the time to let us present tonight.
Thank you all very much for a very good presentation.
Thank you.
Here we have a couple of raised hands, so I'll ask Stacy to manage that first, and we also have a couple written comments.
We need to open the public hearing for that?
Yeah, you already opened it before the applicant spoke.
I have unmuted William.
I was going to comment on the next agenda item.
Okay, thank you. LB, I have enabled you to speak. Are you commenting on American River Collegiate Academy? LB, are you there? I've unmuted and I'm not hearing anything.
Maybe we can try the next one, Stacy, and then come back to them if they figure.
Perfect. The next comment would be from Kermit. Kermit, are you there?
You would need to hit the unmute button, sir.
It looks like Kermit's unmuted. I don't have him in red.
Kermit and LB, if you could continue to try to unmute yourself or speak, that'd be great. In the meantime, I'll have Stacy read the written comments that we received, and we could try to come back to you.
I have two comments. The first one is from John Meyer. Hi, my name is John Meyer. I would like to submit a public comment to be read at this evening's planning meeting. My comment is as follows. We are Jordan and Karen Meyer. Our daughter attends American River Collegiate Academy. The excellent school is currently housed at a temporary location and seeking a permanent campus in Citrus Heights. We ask the city of Citrus Heights to allow American Collegiate Academy to build this new campus at the proposed site. We ask that because our community needs an excellent school in this location. Every child deserves a great education, and they should not have to travel far to get one. Unfortunately, our local school, Mariposa Elementary, does not deliver an excellent education that local children need. The website caschool dashboard.org shows that in 2019, Mariposa Elementary School scored yellow in English language arts, orange in mathematics. This school's scores are just 3 out of 10 on greatschools.org. Our children deserve better. American River Collegiate Academy would be an excellent addition to our neighborhood. It offers rigorous academics and important enrichment programs, including music and drama. American River Collegiate Academy also has a strong commitment to diversity and equitability as students' outcome. This parent company, Rockland Academy Family Schools, has a proven track record of building and running great schools in our local area. Therefore, we ask the City of Citrus Heights to allow American Collegiate Academy to build this new school and bring excellent education to the children of our community. Thank you for your consideration, Jordan and Karen Meyer.
Let's try again one more time.
Okay.
Stacy, let's see if Kermit, are you able to speak?
He's unmuted, Case. I'm not exactly Casey. I don't know.
Mr. Kermit, you are also able to, if you email planning@citrusheights.net, we can read your comment aloud if that's easier for you. Go ahead, Stace, why don't you go ahead and read the next one, please?
This is from Nicole. I hope I'm not going to pronounce your name correctly. I'm sorry about that. Winowski. Good evening. I'm a parent to a first grader at American River. This is our second school year with ARCA. We have zero doubt we made the best decision to enroll our Finn in this school. From collaborative nature of the staff and administration to the consistent communication received about all things school related, we are beyond pleased. Having ARCA as an option in our school district has been such a positive thing. We are not thrilled with our kinder school in our neighborhood, so knowing that we have a choice has been a benefit and such a relief. And the location of the temporary facility on Hazel has been working great. They did such a great job at making it feel like a welcoming school, plenty of space for students and growth to learn. And while we are thrilled with that, we have even more excitement to have our very own campus, especially as the enrollment expands to children and continuing to grow. The layout and design is going to be perfect for students to have. That elementary school should have an MP room, plenty of outside space, large connected classrooms will also be exciting for kids. We can't wait for the school to break ground one day so our kids can soon walk the halls. I continue to support an ARCA. Thank you, Nicole.
Thanks, Stace. Can you please try to unmute LB one more time?
Okay. I don't have the unmute. The unmute button has been moved. When I look at it, it is unmuted.
Okay, what about Kermit? Are you able to hear us and speak?
I've asked them to unmute, but for some reason it's not.
It looks like you're muted right now, Kermit. Can you unmute?
Well, it doesn't look like they're able to unmute.
Okay.
Oh, it sounds like maybe Eric is on the phone with them.
Yeah, Eric's trying to help them navigate their technology. So bear with us for just a moment, if you don't mind.
I have another.
I gave Kermit the number to dial in and the meeting number, and hopefully he'll be able to use that. If not, Kermit, if you're able to provide written commentary in the form of an email to that planning inbox that you've been corresponding with, that is another way that we would be able to read your comments if dialing into the line fails.
I have another raised hand. Hillary is what the name looks like. Hillary,
Yeah, can you hear me?
yes.
So I sent an email with my comment, but I don't think you got it, or you weren't. You said you only had two.
I would just, sir, the comments were all that were received earlier in the week were provided to the Planning Commission earlier today, or earlier this week. Sorry.
All right, I'll read mine out to you that I emailed yesterday. Is that okay?
Sure.
Hi, I'm Eric Lindberg, a resident of Citrus Heights, living in the Sylvan Corners neighborhood. My wife and I have a son attending the school at American River Collegiate Academy for kindergarten. We are in support of building the new school here in Citrus Heights. With the new school built, our son Jeremy will have modern classrooms to finish his primary education. He also will have a large area for recess and physical education. We hope that having the beautiful new school will bring more local residents to the school so Jeremy can meet new local children, and my wife and I can meet parents from the community that we live in. Since we are just down Old Auburn from the site, we hope that the future improvements to Old Auburn will make us able to ride bikes to school. I thank you for your time.
Yeah, that's the only.
Stacy, you're unmuted at the moment. Do we have any other speakers, Stace?
We do not. It's just LB and Kermit. And it looks like they're having issues trying to unmute. Kermit appears to be unmuted. Unfortunately, I'm not sure why we can't hear him.
Let's see. I think Eric has an idea to get him on. One moment, please. I do see a raised hand. Was Hillary Lindberg? Was there two of you that wanted to speak? Oh no, the hand's down. Thank you. Apologies for the delay, folks.
Let me go ahead and put you on speaker.
Okay, it sounds like we are able to get Kermit on here. He is going to speak via my speakerphone here, essentially. It's kind of a jury-rigged way to get this to work, so give me one moment. Okay.
Hi, guys. You ready?
Yes, I believe so. Can everybody hear Kermit?
Yes.
Thank you so much for taking my call. I know that we're having a little bit of technical issue. Can everybody hear me?
Yes, we can.
Excellent. So I just want to make a comment. So John's really his team's presentation really is kind of just like a guesstimate. But to be candid, it's really not an apples to apples, my opinion, because I live at 7801 Wonder Street, the house identified on the corner of Antelope and Wonder, and he doesn't live there, and he is not. He might have passed by my house, but adding an additional 730 drivers in front of my house to be able to pull into a school. I'm sure he doesn't want 730 or even 500 cars in front of his house. And so with that, so they decided they wanted to try to stagger that. So using a little bit of math, we're looking about $365 an hour. But as the attorney from the school decided to talk about, he was talking about that school currently has between like 70 to 85 spots. and he doesn't find that there's an issue with passing another 365 cars in front of our house. And let me talk about, he was talking about John, talked about stop, and they had 6 minutes to get through. I guess his wife must have picked up all the kids, because the kids sometimes want to talk to their friends and they don't want to get. So I don't really care if extremely accept that. Well, I'm taken aback because a lot of our neighbors weren't communicated to. Only 2 on this street. Additionally, 730 cars at 8 o'clock. Oh, I'm sorry, 8 o'clock to 8:20 because they want to stagger it. I'm appalled. I like make sure that you absolutely don't agree with this, because it's absolutely incorrect for our RD3 zone. And on top of that, you've identified my property sidewalk on. Literally, I own it. So you're going to do eminent domain for 3 feet along it? That's bull. So I just don't do it. Goodbye.
Chair, we did receive another, one more email comment. Stacy, do we have any other hands raised before we get to that?
We do not.
I'll read it. I don't know if Stacy, if you received this, I believe this person is also emailed in earlier, but this appears to be a new email. My name is Yana Wren. I've been living in Citrus Heights for over 10 years now. And ever since my son was born, I started looking for a good school for him in Citrus Heights. However, I found it extremely disappointing that there were no high performance schools here. As a matter of fact, my research found it's been going downhill for a long time. I wonder what went wrong when I looked at surrounding areas such as Roseville, Rockland, Orangeville, and Folsom to offer better education. Do we not care about children's education? Do we not all want to build a better community that has a lot more to offer? Look at the housing value in Citrus Heights compared to nearby areas. The difference is obvious. So when Rockland Academy wanted to build a new campus in Citrus Heights, I was very excited. 1 month into the 2021-2022 school year, we are 100% satisfied with the quality of education my son received. Children in Citrus Heights deserve a better school that truly cares about their well-being, which has been lacking for years. We as parents have this wonderful opportunity to start something amazing for our children. My family is fully support of American River Collegiate Academy. We believe it gives families a choice of schools and quality of education. And that's the end of that comment. I have one more comment that just came in. Good evening. As a longtime resident of Citrus Heights, I went to school here, as did my siblings, spouse, and extended family. We love our community of Citrus Heights, but we also understand we have a need for a choice in charter schools here. When families look to buy a house, the first thing they look at is nearby schools. We are competing with Roseville, and American River Collegiate Academy is what our community needs. I've heard a lot about traffic, but we're talking about our kids' education and building our community. Thank you, Kathy Martin. And that appears to be all the comments that have been emailed. Stacy, do we have any more hands raised?
No more raised hands.
Okay, thank you.
Very good. I guess if we do not have any more comments, I'll close the public hearing. Commissioners, any further thoughts, comments on the project? Questions? Okay. I'll go ahead if none of the other commissioners have any comments. I don't see anybody putting up their hand. The last comment, I mean, I think, you know, it's one of those issues that I think everyone, with certainly the child in Citrus Heights, but I think in a broader sense, the overall community wants better schools in Citrus Heights. And this would appear to offer that opportunity. But on the other hand, Obviously, we have addressed the issue of traffic extensively, and we want to minimize to the extent possible the impacts on the neighbors, as per one of the callers. I have feelings for those neighbors, and I'm sure we all do. And it's always a concern of any additional traffic, any additional noise. My experience on projects has been that a well-designed project, while on paper, it may look like a potential disaster for the local people closest to the project, then many times it proves to be an unwarranted concern. And I hope that's the case here. I've taken to heart the pledge of the project proponents in terms of trying to work with the community and develop a good traffic plan. And I think a lot of effort has been made in that regard. There is monitoring. And so I'm hopeful that all works out, and the gentleman that on the corner will find out that it's not as bad as he thinks it will be, and that the benefit to the community will outweigh the peak hour impacts that he might see in front of his property. So, like I say, I think it's a great project, and that's my comments. We have a commissioner that would like to make a motion.
Yes, I motion to adopt resolution number 21-blank, finding that the project is categorically exempt from Sequa for section 15332 of the California Environmental Equality Act infill development.
Jason, would you call the roll, please?
We
We need to get a second first.
Yes,
Mr.
thank
Chair.
you. Do we have a second?
I'll second Nishimura.
Vice Chair Flowers is absent. Commissioner Engel. Commissioner Engel. You have to unmute. There you go.
Yes.
Thank you. Commissioner Nishimura.
Aye.
Commissioner Turner Mike.
Aye.
Commissioner McNavowski.
Aye.
Van Duker has recused himself. Chair Sheeler.
Aye.
Motion passed unanimously.
Before the next motion, I would just like to make sure that whoever makes the motion adds as amended for the use permit, because that condition applies to the use permit.
I move the motion to approve a as amended use permit to allow for the construction and operation of a K-6 or a K-6 charter school for up to 558 students based on the findings and conditions of approval contained in the staff report.
I second.
Stacy?
Vice Chair Flowers is absent. Commissioner Engel.
Aye.
Commissioner Nishimura.
Aye.
Commissioner Turner Mike.
Aye.
Commissioner McNavowski.
Aye.
Chair Sheeler.
Aye.
Motion passed unanimously.
I move to approve a design review permit to allow for the construction of a K-6 charter school, including a 25,000 square foot, two-story classroom building and a 5,500 square foot multipurpose building and associated improvements based on the findings and conditions of approval contained in the staff report.
I second. Turner Mike.
Stacy?
Vice Chair Flowers is absent. Commissioner Engel.
Aye.
Commissioner Nishimura.
Aye.
Commissioner Turner Mike.
Aye.
Commissioner McNavowski.
Aye.
Van Duker has recused himself. Chair Sheeler.
Aye.
Motion passed unanimously.
I move to approve a tree permit to allow the removal of numerous trees for the development of the project.
I'll second.
Thank
Yes.
you.
Stacy?
Vice Chair Flowers is absent. Commissioner Engel,
Aye.
Commissioner Nishimura,
Aye.
Commissioner Turner Mike,
Aye.
Commissioner Magnavowski,
Aye.
Commissioner Van Duker has recused himself. Chair Sheeler.
Aye.
Motion passed unanimously.
Any determination by the planning commission may be appealed to the city council by filing a written notice of appeal and the appropriate filing fee of $250 with the city clerk not more than 10 calendar days after the date on which the determination is made.
Thank you very much, Chair Sheeler and Commission. We really appreciate the opportunity to present to you this evening.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Excited.
I also wanted to say thank you so much on behalf of our students and our staff and our future students. We look forward to having you out to visit our campus off peak traffic hours only.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Great, thanks.
Stacy, next item.
East Lawn Cemetery, 5757 Greenback. The proposed request involves expanding the existing cemetery grounds onto undeveloped subject parcel, including approximately 4,500 additional graves and paved road, new landscaping, and new utility connections. Sacramento County approved entitlements for a use and design review permit on September 13th, 2021, and the staff report relies on their initial study and mitigated narrative declaration for Sequa purposes, as Sacramento County is the lead agency. Project planner Eric Singer.
Thank you, Stacy, and thank you, Chair and Commissioners. As Stacy mentioned, we'll be discussing the East Lawn Cemetery expansion. I know it's running pretty late here, so I'll try to go through this quickly but effectively. So as Stacy mentioned, the overall proposal is for East Lawn to expand. It's currently approximately 57-acre cemetery into the full 64 acres that it owns. The majority of the cemetery actually is in unincorporated Sacramento County. The object of tonight's discussion is simply the 4-acre parcel that is located within Citrus Heights. So within Citrus Heights, it's a vacant parcel located at the north end of the existing cemetery, located at 5757 Greenback. The cemetery itself is located east of Interstate 80 and west of the intersection of Greenback and Auburn Boulevard. The overall site is polygonal, never know how to pronounce that word, in shape, somewhat rolling hillscape with some small clusters of native oak trees that are kind of dispersed across most of the landscape. The existing cemetery is comprised of 3 separate mausoleum sites and 2 offices, one located at the Greenback Lane entrance and one at the Verner Avenue entrance. There are burial grounds, a veterans memorial, crematorium, garden, and maintenance yards. Surrounding land uses include single-family residential to the north and the east, single and multifamily residential to the west of I-80, and a mobile home park to the south. As Stacy mentioned as well, the Sacramento County Planning Commission approved a use permit and design review permit for the proposed expansion, and their initial study and mitigated negative declaration is the environmental review document that we will be relying on tonight as the appropriate level of environmental review for the project. So the proposal itself is fairly straightforward. They are adding approximately 4,500 additional graves to just the Citrus Heights portion, as well as a small paved cul-de-sac that is the culmination of one of the roads that's extending throughout the rest of the territory that they're developing within unincorporated Sacramento County. There's new landscaping proposed, as well as new utility connections. But as you can see, this is the Citrus Heights portion. Is everybody able to see my mouse cursor? It's a relatively small portion of what they're overall proposing. The main impact to the Citrus Heights portion actually is the removal of 5 protected trees on site. So the site itself does contain 5 protected trees. All 5 are proposed for removal. However, the project has been conditioned to require mitigation for the removal of those 5 trees. That mitigation measure is either a 1-for-1 replacement of every inch removed, or a $298 per inch removal fee that is paid into a tree mitigation fund. That fund goes towards planting trees at other sites throughout the city. Looking at the environmental analysis, as I previously discussed, Sacramento County, as the lead agency, completed their initial study and mitigated negative declaration for the project. That initial study was released for public review on July 22nd of this year. That public review period concluded on August 22nd, at which time no public comments or revisions were received. The ISMND discussed impacts to hydrology and biological resources on the site. Mitigation measures are required for the expansion into unincorporated Sacramento County. The mitigation measure required for the Citrus Heights portion is strictly limited to the loss of the protected trees and the mitigation for the loss thereof. So in conclusion, the 2 decisions, really 3 decisions for the commission to review tonight are: 1, determining that county ISMND was the adequate level of environmental review, and then accepting the findings in the staff report that was presented and approving the project, as well as the use permit, as well as the tree permit as conditioned. I am available to answer any questions the commission has, and there are a few members of the applicant's team as well that are here tonight that would be available to answer any questions. Very much.
Thank you, Eric. Commissioners, have any questions of staff? I see not. Commissioners, do you have questions of the project proponent? Very well. Unless the project proponent has comments to make, I would move past a public hearing.
Chair, we do have a raised hand, so I would recommend opening the public hearing.
I hereby open the public hearing.
Stace, can you let Mr. Crofton speak for the third time? I think he's ready now.
Hi there.
Hi.
So I have purchased 2 properties that directly line up. My back fence is to the projected project site. I am completely against the removal of these 5 trees. Eric Sanger, I've been in contact with Eric Sanger since September 9th, 2019 over this. He assured me that he was going to let me know how things were progressing and keep me apprised of any kind of public meetings. I had to find out this one through the mail, unfortunately. My last email contact with Eric Sanger was on 1/12/21 when he was on vacation until February 15th, where he said he was going to get back to me, but never did. So the cemetery, East Lawn Cemetery, has not been a good neighbor. Okay. When I first approached them, when they did when my initial contact with Mr. Sanger is because they were using an arborist company that was using a falsified arborist license. And I brought that to the attention of Mr. Sanger. I don't know if anything ever occurred from that, but I did bring it to his attention. I also brought it to his attention that the arborist, the person that signed off on the arborist report, was also the arborist for the city of Citrus Heights, which is a conflict of interest. This was back in 2019 when I brought this to his attention. I don't know what's going on here. I don't want those trees removed. They are in my lines, my backyard. That's my view. When I bought these houses, when I bought both my houses, 6621 Wooden Field Court, 6620 Wooden Field Court, it was because of these beautiful valley oaks and that were going to be there forever because they were protected trees. And now you're telling me that somebody did a report and said, oh, you can get rid of them for $298 a foot? Okay. Where's my recourse? When I purchased my homes, it was with the understanding those trees would be there forever. In fact, when I purchased these homes, the people that I bought them from said there was a specific contract that they weren't supposed to mess with those trees in the back in this whole area. So I don't know what's changed between now and then. I know that was back in 2001 when this community like first got established, but there was an agreement. And I just want to be on record for saying I'm going to do whatever I can do to stop these trees from coming down, whether it be through injunction or not. But I'd like to be kept in the loop. If anybody ever wants to meet me and do a walkthrough on the site, I'd be more than willing to do it. I mean, because I live right next door to the site. There's a lot of other stuff, I have questions about, but this is the main thing I wanted to get out at this hearing. Thank you.
Thank you.
Chair, I do believe the applicant is also here if they would like to speak.
Very good. Please.
Good evening, and Chair and Commission, thank you again for your attendance and consideration of our conditional use permit request. Can you hear me okay? Okay. Our grave development plans are probably 2 years behind schedule, and we're running out of side-by-side and multi-space options for spouses and families who wish to be together in perpetuity. So, we aren't proposing anything out of the ordinary for a cemetery, and we feel we've been a very good neighbor to the community for over 60 years. We conduct approximately 450 burials each year. So this project is very much in need, and we feel it's very important to the community at large that we serve. So I appreciate your consideration of our request.
Is that the only raised hand, Casey?
That is correct. No, wait, we have Greg. It looks like Greg has a raised hand.
I believe Greg is one of the members of the applicant's team.
Correct.
So no other comments?
Did Greg have something to add?
Greg, did you have something to add?
Steve?
Yes, I did.
Okay, go ahead.
Do you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, so the landscape plan that you have up right now, if you look at those circles in amongst the trees that are being proposed to be added to the cemetery in the Citrus Heights portion, those trees are going to remain. So I don't know what that gentleman is talking about, but those trees are not slated to come out as far as I can tell, because I'm looking at the other exhibits from Dan Cable, who's the landscape architect for the project, who's also on the line. And I don't think those trees are slated to come out. And maybe Dan can get on the line and confirm or tell me I'm wrong, but I don't think those are coming out.
The oak trees in there, I believe those oak trees were slated to come out right there. They're
Okay,
the
well, I was wrong.
they're the light circled, kind of off the cul-de-sac there.
Right, but there's also a lot of trees that are being planted to mitigate these removals.
Quite a few trees going back in.
Yeah. And those are strategically placed because when we do the burials, you don't want to be excavating underneath the drip lines of the trees to compromise the health of the trees that are going to be there. So there's a reason for that. It's a balance between providing as many burials as possible with having the adequate landscaping the cemetery.
We don't have any comments in the planning box.
Looking at Google Earth, trying to figure out where this gentleman's house house is?
Chair, I'd recommend that you only consider the materials that are provided to you in the staff report.
Very well. No further comments. I'll close the hearing. Commissioners, any comments?
This is Commissioner McNoskey.
Chair, I have a comment. I have no clarity at this point. And so I just want to put that on record, that without a little bit better clarity as to these are protected trees, and they just said, yes, they're coming out. No, they're not coming out. And so I'm really not prepared to make an educated decision.
If I may speak to address maybe some of the confusion that the commissioners are experiencing, the initial, sorry, somebody needing to speak. The initial arborist report that we received indicated that there were 5 protected trees on the site that were potentially slated for removal. After subsequent review, Citrus Heights as a city determined that that Sacramento County should be the lead agency in the environmental determination for the project. Based on their review and their processing of the application, we looked at subsequent revisions to the initial plans that were submitted to the city back in 2019. The most recent version of the plans that were submitted as of 2021 indicated that 5 trees in this graphic, the very lightly shaded, the outlines of the trees here were the native trees that were indicated for removal. Those are 5 trees totaling 186 inches DBH. I do apologize if there's any confusion on the part of the applicants, but also having attended the Sacramento County Planning Commission meeting on the 13th, the same information was conveyed at that meeting. So it did match with what the city's analysis was of the trees proposed for removal. Hopefully that helps to clear up any confusion regarding the removal of the protected trees. Another comment to make on that is the project is conditioned that prior to the issuance of any building permits, in this case, likely grading permits for the development of the parcel, a tree replacement plan is required to be submitted to the planning department. In that replanting plan, that will indicate the number of trees that the applicant is proposing to replant on site. Whatever balance is left over, so whatever number of inches remains, can either be planted elsewhere, various sites throughout the city, and or paid into that tree mitigation fund, which is $298 for every inch of tree removed. So hopefully that helps to clarify some of that issue.
Thank you, Eric. Commissioners have any other questions?
Yes, this is Commissioner McNoskey. So Mr. Crofton had a concern about the arborist license that has been expired. Was that ever looked into, and was that confirmed that it was expired?
It was not confirmed that that license had been expired, and I believe a subsequent arborist report had been submitted to Sacramento County after the initial arborist report that was received by the city. As I said, the initial submission to the city was a 2019, and then the applicant went forward with the Sacramento County application as the lead agency. The applicant is also available to answer any questions about the arborist that was used for the report.
Thank you. No comment.
Any other comments? I'm sorry, I'm sort of thinking. Apologize. I think it's, it's a situation where that often happens with property that has not been developed, and vegetation, people get used to vegetation. And then of course it's quite a difficulty when they see that maybe it's not going to be there. That being said, the property owner, in this case East Lawn, has rights. They are conforming with the requirements of tree mitigation for protected trees. And to that end, I see no reason why I should not support the project and the removal of the trees and replacement as per the tree mitigation program. Can we have motions, please? Do I have a motion?
I move to adopt the resolution 2021-empty, finding that the initial study mitigation negative declaration prepared by Sacramento County as lead agency, attachment number 2A, pursuant to the California Environmental Quality Act, is the adequate level of environmental review.
Wheeler, second. Stacy?
Vice Chair Flowers is absent. Commissioner Engel,
No.
Commissioner Nishimura,
No.
Commissioner Turner Mike,
Abstain.
Commissioner Magnavowski,
Aye.
Commissioner Van Duker,
Aye.
Chair Sheeler.
Aye.
We have two noes, one abstain, and 3 ayes. Motion
So that the motion actually does not pass, then you still need a majority of even though you have a majority of 3 to 2 and then 1 abstention, you need to have 4 votes to pass a resolution because the composition of the board is 7 people, even though 1 member of the board is absent.
Thank you, Ryan.
Do we therefore continue or not?
We can, I don't know, Ryan, we could have a little bit of discussion about the motion 1, which is essentially finding whether the mitigated negative declaration is the appropriate level of environmental review. Is that accurate to have that discussion again?
Well, yeah, to see if there's a different level of environmental review that commissioners may be comfortable with, they certainly can do that and pass a new. If there's an alternate motion now that could be proposed by staff, the commissioners can consider that.
I guess I would ask the commission, in this case, this first motion, it appears that the concern raised by some of the commissioners is related to the tree permit and not necessarily the mitigated negative declaration. If I'm missing that, then please let me know. So there is another motion, a separate action on the tree permit that you can have that discussion if that's the basis of what you're making your decision to vote no on or abstain from. So I just wanted to put that out there. Otherwise, almost saying that the environmental document provided by the county is not the appropriate level of environmental review.
Commissioners understand the explanation in terms of the vote has been taken on motion 1, which relates to the environmental document for this project. And I would ask legal, other than changing the required environmental document for this project, is there any other action that the commission can take relative to its first vote?
If so what the commission can do is a motion for reconsideration. If any of the members who voted in the majority, well, in this case, those who voted against it, if they want to reconsider, realizing now that the issue is more with motion 3 with regard to the tree permit, they can make a motion reconsideration and then go ahead and have a revote on motion number 1.
I will move so.
Okay, so this motion will just be to basically remove that first vote, and then we'll have another vote after that. So it's a motion for reconsideration of that vote.
Ryan, can I go ahead and retake roll?
Well, we need a second from Mr.
Okay.
Nishimura's motion first, and then
Okay.
yes, you can take roll.
I second. Mcnowski.
Okay,
Stacy, please.
thank you. Vice Chair Flowers is absent. Commissioner Engel,
Aye.
Commissioner Nishimura.
Aye.
Commissioner Turner Mike,
Aye.
Commissioner McNabowski,
Aye.
Commissioner Van Duker,
Aye.
Chair Sheeler.
Aye.
Motion passed.
Casey, do you want to give any explanation before we take a vote on motion 2 of what motion 2 involves?
So motion number 2 would be granting the use, which would include the cemetery. The tree permit, again, is a separate, do you think the findings are met to remove those trees? But motion 2 is the use appropriate for this location based on the findings and the conditions of approval and staff report.
Let me
excuse
clarify,
me.
before we move to motion 2, we still, right now, we have no vote on motion 1. We redid what we did, the commission did, but if they want to go ahead and try to take another attempt at motion 1, they could do that. But I didn't mean to interrupt Ms. McDuffie. She had other comments too.
No, that was one of my comments. This is Colleen McDuffie. My other comment was it would be helpful when we get to other motions, if there are commissioners, typically I guess maybe this is passed, but we typically would explain why we are voting against a permit, so that when we take this, should it go to the next level, we have those reasonings. But in saying that, perhaps that time has already passed. And mainly, I did just want to reaffirm the need to act on motion 1.
So we have voted to reconsider motion 1. Do I have a motion?
Yeah, I move to reconsider and adopt resolution 2021 empty, finding that the initial study and mitigation negative declaration prepared by Sacramento County as lead agency attachment number 2A pursuant to the California Environmental Quality Act is the adequate level of environmental review.
Vice Chair Flowers is absent. Commissioner Engel.
Need a
We still
second.
need a second, yeah.
Oh, sorry, I'm sorry.
Sheeler, second.
Thank you. Commissioner Engel,
Aye.
Commissioner Nishimura,
Aye.
Commissioner Turner Mike.
Aye.
Commissioner McNabowski,
Aye.
Commissioner Van Duker.
Aye.
Chair Sheeler.
Aye.
Okay, Ryan, so this motion passed, correct?
Correct. Now we pass, and we can move on to motion number 2.
Thank you.
I do have a question. Since motion number 2 ends in and, we can still vote differently on each of the motions.
You could leave the and off of that one.
Correct. You can vote differently.
I move to approve the use permit allowing for the expansion of the cemetery grounds subject to the findings and conditions of approval contained in the staff report.
Second, Engel.
Thank you. Vice Chair Flowers is absent. Commissioner Engel,
Aye.
Commissioner Nishimura,
Aye.
Commissioner Turner Mike,
Aye.
Commissioner Magnavowski,
Aye.
Commissioner Van Duker,
Aye.
Chair Sheeler.
Aye.
Motion to pass unanimously.
So now I understand motion number 3 is about to come on the table, and I don't know how this is going to go, how it's going to get voted, but inclination from the first motion is that it may not pass. If that's the case, I agree with Ms. McDuffie that it would be potentially helpful for the applicant to understand some of the rationale. It doesn't need to be really explicit, but the applicant does have the ability to appeal it to the city council, and they should have an understanding of where it comes from. Also, if the commission's just not comfortable with this particular item, you could continue the tree permit to a later date. I don't know how critical the timing is. That's probably, for the other staff members to comment on, but I wanted to lay that out there before a vote's taken. That's hard to potentially undo.
I would add, go ahead, Eric.
I was just going to say, if I may, if there is any, confusion, or if there are any additional questions that the commissioners have, specifically regarding the removal of the trees, mitigation for the trees, staff is definitely available to hopefully clarify that further for you.
I guess my question is how I would prefer more time personally, because I would prefer the time to go back and read a little bit more on tree permits. And I know that there's provisions that, we can collect funds in order to allow people to take out these protected trees, but I don't think I'm evidently familiar enough with that particular part of my job right now. And I'm inclined to vote no. So I would prefer to revisit it if that's possible. Otherwise, that's where I'm gonna go until I have more clarification.
I agree with Commissioner Engel.
I agree too, because it seems as if we're relying on the county's arborist report. And I just don't have a whole lot of confidence in this. There's too many maybes, I thinks. I just don't feel confident voting on it right now.
I would like to make a comment, Commissioner Van Duker. I am a little bit uncomfortable with how it's been presented to us, but I also go back to the fact that removal of the trees is allowed for in the law, and that we do need to respect the rights of the property owners as well as the surrounding property, but fundamentally it comes down to the property owners. So even though I'm somewhat uncomfortable with how it's been presented to us, I'm inclined to support the motion.
I agree.
Sorry.
Go ahead. Sorry, Casey.
One potential alternative we could consider too is, in addition to continuing it, is if there is a condition of approval that the commission finds is acceptable to them, to allow staff to continue to work with applicant and try to protect those trees. That might be an option. Otherwise, we can continue the project and bring back something to you with more clarity. Continue the tree permit portion of the project, I should say.
I need more clarity. I don't know what protected is, if it just means pay us money for some inches. So I definitely need clarity personally.
I can answer that question of what a protected tree is, if I may. So defined in our city zoning code, a protected tree is, in this case, any native oak tree. There are, I believe, 4 different types of oak species that qualify, that is greater than 6 inches in diameter at breast height. That's the standard by which all arborists will measure the thickness and maturity of a tree. So in this case, if the tree is greater than 6 inches and is one of those 4 native oak species, it is considered protected. Another provision is if it is a tree that is not a native oak, but is greater than 19 inches in diameter at breast height, it is also considered protected. However, all of the trees that are identified in this particular arborist assessment were one of those 4 oak species, and they were all greater than 6 inches in diameter.
I would just like to add, I agree with Andrew. They own the property, but I also have an oak tree in my yard that I do not cut down because it's not a safety hazard, and I realize that it is protected, even though I would prefer not to have it there. So I agree with what Andrew says, but I just don't feel comfortable voting on this right now unless we were to continue it.
I would also like to add, I think that the point of the protecting the trees is to protect the general canopy of trees in the city, not any specific trees, and that's why the mitigation the mitigation measures are in the law.
So I agree with Commissioner Van Duker on this, Mcnowski. So we approve tree permits pretty much on every project, every medium to major project, and I think this is no exception. And the 5 trees, very little amount of trees compared to other tree permits that we approve. So based on that, I mean, I agree with Commissioner Van Duker completely. It is the rights owner of the land of the property owner, right? So I mean, I don't know what else to say. The only thing that my concern is if we are going to continue this, is to look into the arborist like expired license issue. I don't know if that's if that can be looked into. But other than that, I think the tree permit is something that we typically do, and is something that goes with the use permit. That's it.
One thing I would add is the findings for approval of a tree permit. I'd like to read those to the commission so they understand, because if we are going to deny it, we need to do findings for denial, which would be contrary to what these approval ones are. So the findings for approval for a tree permit says the approval of the tree permit will not be detrimental to the public health, safety, or welfare, and the approval of the tree permit is consistent with the provisions of this chapter. And measures have been incorporated into the project or permit to mitigate impacts to remaining trees or to replace trees removed. So I think, if the commission is confident in their ability to make findings to the contrary, we can certainly discuss that. Otherwise, those findings do appear to have met, but that's at your discretion, and we could continue and come back with more information depending on the pleasure of the commission.
That's what I needed. Thank you.
Sheeler, I would like to throw out the thought, like any developer, square footage means money. And I'm wondering if a discussion between East Lawn and the gentleman that called in saying he just bought these 2 new houses, if there would be a discussion between the two to try to preserve these 2 trees, and maybe seek compensation from the gentleman to some extent for the loss of revenue that keeping those trees would cause. I still feel very strongly, I agree with Commissioners Van Duker and Mcnowski, and as I've already stated, I think the property owner has the right, and as long as he's compliant with the tree mitigation requirements, I don't see where we should stop it. But I'm trying to basically split the baby, as it were, and I don't necessarily want to delay this, continue it. Obviously, as Casey has already said, we could condition the tree permit for what as I understand it, that we could condition the tree permit to include a discussion between East Lawn and this property owner, adjacent property owner, to try to come to resolution. And I guess we would have to include that were they not able to reach resolution, that the East Lawn would prevail, and that may make some other commissioners uncomfortable. They may want other things explored through delaying this entire process.
I would. The only thing, go ahead, Colleen.
Sorry, if I could just jump in, this is Colleen McDuffie. I'm hearing that there's really a lot of questions tonight about the whole tree permit process. I want to make sure the commissioners have the information that you need to make your decision. And I'd like to suggest that we continue that you consider a continuance. So I really feel like we need to get you more information so that you will feel comfortable making this decision.
Thank you.
I would feel better about that.
So if that's the pleasure of the commission, we would need a motion that says something along the lines of I move to continue the tree permit to a date uncertain or something along those lines. Does that sound okay to you, Ryan?
Yeah, but if you say date certain, you actually have got to pick a date. That way you don't have to re-notice it. Well, was this a public hearing? I can't recall.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, so if you could pick a date, Casey, or that you think our next most likely planning commission meeting is, if that's what, October 13th or the 27th, that's what the motion should say to that day. That way you don't have to renotice it in the paper.
So just because I don't have the calendar worked out at this point in my head, I think, I prefer to wait and we'll just renotice it because I don't have that set in my mind at this point. If that's the pleasure of the commission.
Well, another option is we continue it to the next meeting. And if something occurs and we are unable to make that meeting, we're not able to obtain all the information that we need, at that point, we could get the information out that meeting will not be held on that date and then notice it when the meeting is.
Good point. Yeah. So in that case, the next meeting would be October 13th, I believe is the right date. And so if we want to do that, if the motion could, whoever would want to make the motion would say, I move to continue the tree permit to October 13th. Be the appropriate motion.
I move to continue the tree permit till October 13th.
I second.
Casey?
Vice Chair Flowers is absent. Commissioner Engel,
Yes.
Commissioner Nishimura,
Aye.
Commissioner Turner Mike,
Aye.
Commissioner Magnavowski,
Aye.
Commissioner Van Duker. I'm sorry, Commissioner Van Duker.
Aye.
Thank you. Chair Sheeler.
Aye.
Motion approved to move item to the next meeting, October 13th.
Next item, please.
Excuse me, before we go, we probably do need to read the appeal language for the actions that were approved.
Beat me to it, Colleen.
I know you beat me too, Colleen. You're fast.
Very good. Thank you. Any determination by the Planning Commission may be appealed to the City Council by filing a written notice of appeal and the appropriate filing fees of $250 with the city clerk not later than 10 calendar days after the date on which the determination is made. Next item, please.
Regular calendar, we have none.
Next item.
Planning manager comments, Casey.
Yeah, I just wanted to let the commission know we're planning right now to have a special planning commission meeting on the Sunrise Tomorrow specific plan and EIR recommendation on October 20th. I know I emailed to somebody. I heard back from a few of you that works. I just wanted to, if you can nod your head that still works in the evening. I see Andrew, yes. Let's see, people are moving around here. Mike, it looks like it. Yes, that works for you. Paul, I know you said yes. Talia, I think
shaking your head, yes.
Okay. So looks like we have a majority. So more to come on that. Just wanted to make sure we were had a quorum and can move that project forward. So more to come on that. And that's all I had.
Very good. There's no other actions, so therefore I call the meeting adjourned. Thank you all.
Tom, can you note the time, please?
It is 9:45, September 22nd.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Good night.
Good night.
Night.